Alright, so over the last couple of days over in the US House of Representatives, which is obviously under Republican control right now, it has just been in utter and complete chaos. So obviously this started out with sort of a beef with the McCarthy wing of the Republican Party versus the Matt Gaetz wing of the Republican Party as we were approaching what seemed to be an inevitable government shutdown. And we narrowly at the very last hour, like almost literally at the last hour, avoided that government shutdown, but it was pretty close. And it looks like Matt Gaetz's wing of the Republican Party sort of got shafted as McCarthy and other Republicans had to work with Democrats to get a much more clean bill through the House and sent over to the Senate than Matt Gaetz wanted. But I want to start out here just showing you guys some of the demands from the Matt Gaetz wing of the party in terms of what they wanted in order to agree to keep funding the government, just some of the most drastic and draconian cuts that you could possibly imagine. And then I'm going to tell you guys just a quick update as this is sort of unfolding right now as I speak, this fight over whether or not to oust McCarthy as the Speaker of the House, which is its own chaotic situation in and of itself. So here just in terms of what they wanted to cut, right? So again, they basically were going to Kevin McCarthy, Matt Gaetz, and the rest of a lot of these more fringe Republicans were going to Kevin McCarthy, and they were saying, we are not going to approve any funding to continue the government and not have this shut down unless you give us these demands, okay? Here they are, not even kidding. House GOP will try today to advance a bill that cuts by at least 30%, so some of these it's more than 30%, housing subsidies for the poor, medical research for cancer, SSA offices, nutrition aid for pregnant moms, Head Start, the EPA, NASA, the Justice Department, the LIHEAP, toxic waste cleanup, and much more, okay? And they exempt, obviously, the Department of Homeland Security, the VA, and, of course, the Department of Defense, which was something that they pretended to float with for a little bit. You guys remember that when some Republicans were like, hey, what if we cut this bloated military budget? No, they're absolutely never going to do that, obviously, right? So, I mean, these are the kinds of things that they were fighting for, okay? So don't be, under any illusions, as it seems like some Republicans are, and as Matt Gaetz is trying to pretend that he is this revolutionary fighter who is pushing back against the corrupt establishment. No, you are literally trying to do the bidding of what the Republican Party has been trying to do forever. I mean, for my entire lifespan, they've always wanted to cut these programs. It's more just about what can actually get passed. Even if you had gotten the 30% or more cuts on all of these different programs, that wouldn't have passed through the Senate. Joe Biden probably wouldn't have signed it anyways, even if it did get through the Senate. So all of this was basically just Republican virtue signaling, okay, from the fringes of the party as they're pretending to be the radicals pushing against the establishment. Okay, well, you're basically just trying to fuck over the poorest and most vulnerable people in the country, and then it didn't even work. Not that it would have, even if it passed through the House, but it didn't even work in the House. So what was all of that for? Again, just virtue signaling, just fundraising for your own political campaigns or whatever the case may be. And as pointed out here by Jeff Stein, he also says, it looks like a bunch of vulnerable House Republicans are going to have just voted for 30% cuts to hundreds of domestic programs only for the bill to fail anyway by a wide margin. So now you're also giving, ammunition to your Democratic opponents in upcoming elections who can say, look, this person just voted to cut all of these different programs here that help you in your day-to-day lives, and they just voted to cut those things, and it also didn't even pass. So, I mean, it's just like completely ridiculous. I mean, here's the final vote tally on that bill that they were just talking about in terms of, so basically, again, they had the continuing resolution, which was sort of the more normal one that was much more clean and basically keeps government funding at the level that it's at right now for the next 45 days, which, is amazing that that's how our government works, right? We're going to have to revisit this same chaos in 45 days from now, but put that aside, you also had a second bill, which was more like the Matt Gaetz demands that had all of these cuts, and again, it failed in the House of Representatives. So after all of that chaos, after Matt Gaetz sort of like loses, he doesn't get a lot of the things that he was asking for, he's basically throwing a hissy fit over here. So now we get to Matt Gaetz, trying to push to oust Kevin McCarthy. Now, I mean, keep in mind, obviously, I'm a leftist, right? I don't give a shit about Matt Gaetz. I don't give a shit about Kevin McCarthy. They can both go fuck themselves, right? I don't care about this infighting. If anything, I think it's a great thing. It makes them all look incompetent and terrible at their jobs. And again, the things that they're fighting over are like extremely unpopular cuts to, social programs that benefit millions and millions of people. So here's Matt Gaetz officially filing the motion to vacate Kevin McCarthy's speakership.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
Okay, so that's essentially the main, speech that he gave there, but he also went out and, of course, talked to reporters to get himself a little bit more attention. So here's what it seems like his main outline of his beef with Kevin McCarthy is.
If there's a deal made with Democrats, the only deal is to make one with McCarthy, because I'm not offering anything and won't offer anything. And by the way, if the Democrats want to own Kevin McCarthy, they can have it. Because one thing I'm at peace with is when we stand here a week from now, I won't own Kevin McCarthy anymore. He won't belong to me. So if the Democrats want to adopt him, they can adopt him. If there's a deal.
Okay, so I mean, again, that's him basically outlining that, as this process plays out, to oust him or to file this motion to vacate, Democrats could potentially step in and save Kevin McCarthy and basically vote to keep him in this position. Now, they're probably not going to do that, and I'm going to explain to you why, based on some of the recent statements we've gotten from the Democratic leadership led by Hakeem Jeffries here in a minute. But again, I mean, basically he's saying, I disown Kevin McCarthy. He's not a Republican. He's trying to work under the table with Democrats on some of these things. And so, we're basically just trying to oust him. What is the plan for after you oust him? Who the fuck knows? That's still definitely up in the air. We could legitimately end up with a situation where they succeed in vacating the speakership, and then it's like, who's going to replace him? I don't know. Let's read a little bit into it. So here from the Washington Post, they had a helpful little graphic here because all of this gets very complicated. It's difficult for me to even wrap my head around how this, the minutia of how all this process is going to play out. But here's a little graphic that they put together. Okay, so Gaetz introduces the motion to vacate. This then kicks off a 48-hour process in which the House has to go through this series of events in order to, potentially remove or keep the speaker. So a couple of different things that could happen. First, there's going to be a motion to table this, basically to push this off to the side, the motion to vacate, not address it right now. That would essentially, if it passed, lead to Kevin McCarthy, as they point out here. If you follow down this, motion to table passes, and then McCarthy survives. But it looks like, again, based on some of the statements we've gotten from Democrats, that that's probably not going to happen as long as, the Republicans have a tiny, minority of their people that are voting in order to not to table this resolution, which it seems like they have because the margins within the House between Democrats and Republicans are so thin, right? I mean, if Democrats don't vote to table this, which I assume none of them will, and you have a handful of Republicans who don't vote to table this, then, this is basically off the table as a possibility. So then you have the motion to table, that's going to fail, and so you follow down on this line. Then you're going to have the motion to vacate, and you need a majority in order to vacate the speakership. Now, again, you have very slim majorities in the House for the, Republican Party. If the motion to vacate then fails, then McCarthy survives. Now, this could happen a couple of different ways. Either Matt Gaetz and company, they back down, or there's some sort of deal that's worked out, and they don't end up voting to vacate him. Or again, you could have Democrats that step in, and you'd only need I think less than 20 or so Democrats to vote in favor of McCarthy in order for him to survive. Now, again, doesn't look like that's going to happen, and so I'm left with this. I mean, it looks like right now, given the most updated information that I've seen, what's going to happen is there's going to be a motion to table. That motion to table this vacation, or the motion to vacate, is going to fail. So you follow down here, and then you're going to have the motion to vacate. And I think the motion to vacate is going to pass, right? Because if every single Democrat votes to vacate the speakership, which that's what they've said they're going to do, and you have a handful of Republicans, enough to overcome that, slim majority that they have in the House, then it looks like he's going to be ousted. Now, where do you go from there? I don't fucking know. It's a very complicated situation. This is almost literally never happened throughout the entirety of American history. So just a little bit more on that, and also on Matt Gaetz' strategy here, because this one motion to vacate apparently isn't going to be enough for him. Even if McCarthy survives this, Matt Gaetz says he's basically just going to keep doing this over and over again. So they say Gaetz has said for weeks that a push to topple McCarthy might fail the first time, but he has vowed to keep bringing motions to vacate until McCarthy is gone. What you'll see when we first cast this vote will be my floor, not my ceiling. And I think that as we have more votes later, numbers voting to oust McCarthy will likely grow. And they say if Gaetz succeeds in ousting McCarthy, the House will enter uncharted territory. And apparently they worked out some sort of backroom deal back in the day when, McCarthy was going through the process that, again, has never happened throughout the entirety of American history, where they had to go through those multiple rounds of voting in order to confirm McCarthy as the speaker in the first place. There was a bunch of deals that were sort of like backroom deals that were made between the Matt Gaetz, wing of the party and Kevin McCarthy in order to inevitably give him the speakership. One of those was the ease of the ability for them to file a motion to vacate against him. And another one apparently was that he has a list of speakers in waiting, or I guess people who who would temporarily fill this position if he's pushed out of this position, and then you're left with a situation where it's like, well, how much power does that person have? Are they actually going to be the speaker, even though they haven't really been confirmed as the speaker? Are they just going to basically preside over the next election for a speaker? And then, of course, you're going to have a whole nother, round of chaos, because there is nobody who's obvious that could, rally the entire Republican caucus around them in order to replace Kevin McCarthy. Okay, so I mean, again, it's just all up in the air right now, complete and utter chaos. I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. I just laid out sort of my basic predictions for how this is probably going to go out. Again, we had this statement here from Hakeem Jeffries in the House, basically confirming that, he says, given MAGA extremism in an authentic and comprehensive manner, House Democratic leadership will vote yes on the pending Republican motion to vacate the chair. So, I mean, there you have it. It looks like Democrats are going to tank McCarthy. He'll be ousted. What comes after that? I don't know, but I'll keep you guys updated.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying